Afternoon, everyone. I was going to talk about like all the six threat options for Midnight Suns, and what I decided to do is here are the six threats that I could see potentially being in Midnight Suns. I don't know if any of the other ones make the cut. Obviously not. So the world used to be Thor was the best six in the game, basically, if not close to Hawk. He got nerfed, so he's not as obvious that he's the best one. And then you can't take normal Hawk because you have Eyehawk, and the whole idea behind this is to take Blade, Eyehawk, and another six to be three wide at 17 for some setups. And so that's why it's not as obvious for Suns because you already have Hawk, so that kicks out one person, and then Thor got nerfed. These are the six that I would be like, okay, I think they have some play, and even actually, I'm a big anti-clocks guy. I'm not a big time gem Namor person, and Bots is, and I know Bots does like him, but doesn't like him at 17 as much. Maybe it's because of the way that the scenario is being set up and or the fight and whatnot, and I can see that as well. Gladiator and King Backblood, I just don't have enough experience with. They both seem fine-ish with him. I don't know if they mesh or do enough that I want to do, especially with like early turn control and like really taking advantage of Bump. The big advantage for Bump is like they can get to the midline. Okay, so they're all safe grabs. Everyone on this list is a safe grab under Suns. That's not unique. So that's not a benefit for anybody. If anything, Namor, Maw, and Hulkbuster can get like deeper in and do crazier grabs. Like Hulkbuster can get to an enemy B and then bump backwards. Actually, they all can do that. That's not fair. They all can get to like an enemy F or B and then bump or space gem backwards and get pretty much the same distance back. There are some cool things that some of them can do, but they all can do like relatively cool stuff. And then so it's a matter of like their attacks and then maybe their play patterns with bump where like Gladiator has a charge, and so as long as he has charge power, it's not as important to be able to bump. Whereas Thor too, sure he has pounce, but it costs a lot of power. And I guess the other thing for him is being able to pounce like around or like bump around terrain into pounce can be very powerful. Um, Namor again has some safe grab stuff with bump, but he doesn't really like need it like the others do. Like he's already super fast and whatnot. Sure, it gives you an extra 3 inches on like your potential charge. So really, to me, like if I had to close my eyes and cut half of them out, it'd be Namor, Gladiator, Black Bolt. I think Hulkbuster, Thor, and Ebony Maw have some cool things. Um, Thor is just Thor. I think his power is reduction has definitely been felt with the nerf. Do I think he's bad? No. Do I think he is the greatest six in every situation? Probably not. He would probably actually be decent in Suns, just for the pure. When he's in the shit and doing his stuff, he's still one of the most output sixes in the game, if not the most output six. He had a little bit of trouble getting there, and Midnight Suns is one that actually meaningfully turns on something turn one. So, for example, Gladiator and Black Bolt can hit the midline turn one by just walking. Of course, Bump gets him onto the midline secure, so it's a little different. Whereas Thor can't hit the midline turn one, and so Bump actively gets him on there to like hit somebody who's up there. Hulkbuster, again, too, he can hit the midline turn one without Bump, but he can get a little bit farther down the road with it. And there's some cool things he can do. I don't know. Hulkbuster, I don't say he's a meme, but he is really cool, and I really like the model. Um, he probably is the wrong choice. He is cool that he comes with Helios Laser. He technically has two sides, but, he has 13 health on the front with armor 1 or reduction to 0, depending. It's only for reduction from attacks. It's not the same. So, I don't know. He has auto pushes. He has some cool things. I like him, but maybe he's better in other setups where you can take, like, Hulk with him, even though Hulk is pretty cool with him. I basically came down to really talk about Ebony Maw. and he's somebody who I've played a little bit in Convocation, and it honestly, I feel like even a lot for me is he gets a little bit of a bad rap because his model's so small. And so I really believe that because he's such a small model, I inherently think like he's not going to be powerful. But he does have a pretty cool card, and obviously not obviously, but in this case, I would give him Space Gem, and there was reasons for why I would give him Space Gem. Um, he does get a lot of the safe grab stuff because of Space Gem, and Bump can affect that a little bit. Um, I mean, we all know what his how he has a range 4 6 dice with a wild trigger to move. He has an 8 dice where you don't gain power and he can throw a size 2. Um, he has the longest throw in the game, a long throw with a size 3 of terrain that's up to size 4. He's immune to collision. He, unless people pay 2, he gets 6 dice. He gets 2 additional power. So nothing too crazy on his card as far as like. I mean, he does what he does. He only has a gainer, so he's only getting so much power. So he's getting 4 power per turn with the gem, and then potentially 2 more with his gainer attack. So let's just look at a TTS board and kind of get why I'm semi interested in this guy. So what I really want to focus on would be like a B shape, like Infinity, for example. He's probably he is kind of interesting on. I haven't really done a lot of Meteor math yet, but where's Infinity? He's probably semi interesting. Infinity. So the reason I think he's kind of cool on Infinity is okay. So everybody's a safe grab. He's a safe grab. He doesn't get much out of Bump being the safe grab. Like he's gonna use his power to gem up, grab something, and walk backwards. He will technically have the bump afterwards, but I don't think there's any distance that is that important. Maybe the only thing would be if you. I guess we can put down a D shape. This one. This might tell us something. The only thing I can think of is that if you're playing like scientific samples, so just assume that this is a D shape secure and not. I know that this won't get you within contest range because you need a 2-inch for that. But can you do it with a 1-inch? Okay. Alright, that's kind of interesting. Okay. I guess one use of Bump would be if you're on something like a D shape with scientific samples and you want to remain within 2 of this for purposes of the extra point, you could bump all the way back to your back one if you didn't want to stand near this one. I guess one thing it does do, that's kind of interesting. Okay. All right. Actually, this is something I didn't even think of that is actually pretty big. Is depending on what people do, is I guess you could technically safe grab this, right? With your gem. You have 1 power left, and then you could make a range 4 attack if it's like Scoundrels or something, and then bump back to the back point. So that is something. You could basically trade the bump back for. I mean, it's not super safe. It's like that's like what's his name, Danny safe, where Iron Fist can bump backwards. But if you're on playing like Scoundrels or something, or somebody takes like the mid Scoundrel, it would be bigger. Oh, Scoundrels, I don't know if you could do that. I don't know. If somebody chooses to walk in front of him here without taking the sample, because I guess the point being is if this is your team, right, Blade and I guess it would be a Ebony Maw, we'll just pretend that Steve is Ebony Blade. He threatens the safe grab, but he's also like super threatening on the midline. So for example, while Thor can only attack once, Maul can space gem himself, right? If they unsafe it, they can. Oh my god, he can space gem himself. Now we can do it. Now we can do it. Space gem himself, and he can always attack whoever if they pick it up unsafely. Double tap them, and he could bump to the point. So this is the big deal: is he and throw something at him. So his power is he is neutral power if he does everything, right? So he gets 4 power to start, and if you can double tap, he gets 6. So that is 3 power for throw, 2 power for space gem, 1 power for bump. That means, assuming he's totally self-sufficient, if no one's attacking him, to like do his like damage output. Now, of course, turn 1, if you're going here and you're picking, and he's not gonna have deflection or shush money. But you know, if you're doing that thing where somehow you're attacking turn 1 or just walking back here, you're not going to spend all your power. You could do something like, does that work? Yeah. So I think there's 2 play patterns you could kind of go for. If you're trying to safe grab here, you could do something like, I just thought of this one, to be completely honest with you. How long is Space Gem 3? Okay, so let's just say it was 3. Let's say it was Blade, for example, or maybe it's High Hawk, right? And you have priority. You can go, I'm just going to double walk. You know, I'm going to space gem up Ihawk or Blade or whoever is over here, right? Oh my god. I'm going to get this one day. I'm going to space gem up here, right? And then I'm going to double walk to here, and then bump back to the Senator, right? Or the Infinity. Again, I don't know if this works on... I feel like it does work on other shapes. All right, so you could like go here, and now he's in a better spot to do something crazy, and then Blade would be, you know, actually it'd probably be him here and Blade in the middle, right? Let's just say it was Virus, right? That's a better example. You're playing Virus, you have priority. They pick 17 because it's on this. Now all of a sudden you pick this one up with Maul. You're here. Blade is up here. Blade is now in safe grab range of this one. So if they don't go for it, Blade can get it. And if they do go for it, you can grab the other one with Ihawk, right? So like that's kind of the idea, is like you can basically get 2 safe grabs and threaten them in the middle. Blade would probably want to walk back, but you could double safe grab if you want, or you know, you can move Blade up, because I think you have a lot of distance from over here to like place yourself in deployment. Like you're not stuck, like you're not kind of housed where you have to go. Like you could start here and you know, do some sort of weird ass play with Hulk or something. I don't know. The point being is, even if you just do it like this and Hulk is here, actually I do want to try this. This is why we're labbing, boys and girls. So if Hulk was here, I want to move you over just a little bit. You also have the thing of like, you can do something like this. This is oh man, Steve, no. Let's just say it's here, right? He'd be about here. I guess that's a play I didn't think of. Would it work? I guess you could go with Blade first. Let's just see if Blade was here. And then I want him to be. I'm trying to do something where like you get a little like you set up like this, right? So Blade would be here. Blade just double walks and grabs the Virus in the middle, right? Now the enemy has to do something. They either pick up in front of, and it depends on where their safe grabs, if they have any, are. Do they pick up in front of Ihawk, or do they pick up in front of Space Smaw? And it's kind of interesting in that if they pick up in front, if they choose to do neither, right? They're too scared. Maybe they want to punish Blade. Like, Space Smaw could do something like walk here. Does it work? Deployment is on. I might get this one day. Walk here. Space Gem Blade back. Maybe this way. Then walk here. Pick up this one. He'd be back here. And then bump back. and all of a sudden, all you have left is one in front of iHawk, and these two guys have gone, right? So, like, that's something I didn't even think about some of the Space Jam plays, how bumping back is just sometimes safe enough. But he's a safe grab. He can double tap the midline with a throw from deployment. So, like, with bump. So, why is bump different, right? He can always... Spaceball can always double tap somebody there. But the big thing now is... I guess I'm wrong. All right, I'm lying. I'm lying, guys. I'm a liar. He can always get to this. I forgot. He could always get to the infinity and still threaten this. So maybe not as far. I don't know 100%. It gives you more range. Let's just put it that way. You have much more range to like threaten somebody grabbing this. But I think the big reason I like him is, and are you within 9? Like, you wouldn't be in throw range. That's right. So he lets you threaten, because you're not in throw range with just Space Gem, unless you can bring them towards you. So bump and Space Gem lets you like double move, basically get to here and then double tap somebody and whatnot. I also like that. One thing I think needs to be appreciated is how far range he has, right? So he is super far range. I hate this game. Oh yeah, this is a place. If you just bump, like, don't even think about objective. Just pretend that doesn't exist. It's not a D shape. Like, look how far he gets up the board with gem and bump. Like, if you're on the front side of this, you are getting hit by Spaceball, double tap in the throw. Like, he has the power for everything. And so that's something I think is a little bit unappreciated about him is with bump. Again, this is specifically with bump, is that little extra 2 inches really threatens a lot of this with like an extra attack. And so a lot of times we talk about bump being... I've heard people say you don't need... Bump isn't as important on a close map because you don't need it. Okay, aside from turn 1 shenanigans, bump... Go back and watch a game of a good Suns player and just count how many attacks they get because of bump, right? So this is a play pattern, hate that word, that I want to share. You're fighting for a side B. They're playing KG. Your Maw is here, right? Look at this. Right? You can just bump, like, all you have to do is bump into throw range, right? So Space Gem into throw range. Boom. Double tap, throw, bump back onto the point. Or if you can bump in the throw range, and then, depending on what they do next turn, you go, all right, well, I know I'm going to bump back into throw range, right? You know if they're on the point, you can do it. I'm going to bump back into throw range, double tap, Space Gem to the back. Right? So you're constantly like going in, throwing, double tapping, maybe moving them with your trigger, and then bumping it back out of range. So bump is really good with like, it's always good on turn 1 with people who do like normal stuff, but it's also really good on people like iHawk and Blade, or not Blade, Maw and stuff, people with self-movement, because it lets you go in and out where you say, all right, even if this person was range 5, right? If this was Rocket Raccoon or Yondu, whatever, you have the advantage of, I can, no matter where you are on here, unless you're like, even I think if you're back here, I think you could be back on the back side of it. Let's see. Maybe just, no, you're probably just short doing it this way. All right. Don't stand on the back side of it. But as long as you're like pretty much on the point, like even outside of range 5, right? So that's like somebody on Yondu or whoever. You can always bump up, tac, throw, Space Gem back. Nothing stops it. Like no one's safe like from that. And you're always almost trading 2 attacks and a throw for 1 attack. Because you have the longest throw in the game, right? It depends on terrain around you. And then you have your blanks thing. You have, and so I think like Yondu's a bad example because Yondu's 4 threat versus your 6. But the control you have on your side of the board is pretty crazy with like how many attacks you get while staying on your point, and stuff like that. That's one thing. So he's power neutral is a big thing. Um, Space Gem can be used on other models. So unlike the other characters, if you're flushed with power or you don't need to actually move off your point that much, you can like rearrange Blade or iHawk, which I just showed you. There's some turn 1 stuff that's actually pretty interesting to do. Um, More likely like turn 2 or something. I did wonder something. Again, I haven't planned out every setup, but I'm curious if on Scoundrels how much this like advantage it gives you. I think it works. I think if you play like the inside of the Scoundrels. Yeah, like this. If you play like the inside of the Scoundrels, like bump just gets you enough to like get to the other this one and start like threatening other things, but while getting from point to point. Like you can rotate. You're basically rotating without moving, right? You're just using attack. So I do think it gets you a lot more attacks. The other thing I will say, like a little bit of a kicker for me, if anything, to at least make it try, um, is Shush. It's one of the best tactics cards in the game. Like it's so good of a tactics card, and I feel like not only is it just really good tactics card, period. I feel like if you're taking this kind of setup into some of these like 3 or 4 wide bruiser comps, it could be really backbreaking for some of them. Like, okay, you stop Namor from charging, right? If Namor has to walk charge and can be shushed, he loses an attack, and he loses the chance to stagger, and he loses 3 power, right? Like, he loses all of it in one go. So you're probably saving yourself an action, taking into action away from him. And most Namors aren't like that excited, especially if they can't stagger you or threaten to kill you, to like just walk into where they are. So in some sense, you might even be taking away his move. So I guess think of it this way. This is kind of like an interesting way to think of it, like the Namor one specifically, especially if he's not time gem. If he just has 3 power, like let's say he safe grabbed, right? I walk up, and now he goes to walk charge, and you stop him. And let's say he had to walk charge for whatever purposes that is. Like he now has no power to do anything. So because he has no power, unless he's on Infinity or something, he's not going to. He can't attack you. So, and if you don't attack him, he can't charge the next turn because a lot of them want to get in there and start generating power, and then maybe they're charging and backing out. Like they can't do that either, right? If their plan is to charge in and run away, now if you start within 5, because technically he can walk attack somebody. I think his total distance is like 12 inches, so it's farther than shush range. So you got to be a little careful that like he can technically come just outside of shush range and then charge in. That being said, if you just start within 5, he can't. He can walk back and then do it, but he's already wasting an action there. And if he does it right away and you shush it, then all he can do is walk, attack you. So he's not going to get the stagger, and he probably doesn't want to be up next to you. That's an example. I mean, there's tons of superpowers like that where like a charge can be backbreaking, not letting Miles get a web swing away or something, or even in like just saying nah, no web swing. You're in -4 dice and you don't get an attack, right? So you're going from 6 dice and 4 dice attack to a just 1 4 dice attack. Or if people use it to get away, I think that's another interesting one where a lot of people use like those kind of abilities to get away, and you can stop them. It could be like a free VP that way. One of my funniest ones that I thought of would be during a big siege turn, if you're like trying to break a bunker or something, technically you could shush a bodyguard and then screw them that way. Like your iHawk's going in to their Hawk, and they have Steve Rogers behind them, and you don't have anything to displace him for whatever reason. Maybe your Hawk couldn't get in range because he's like 2 behind you or whatnot, and then you go for your big turn, and you just shush the bodyguard and then rail on his Hawk and kill him and throw him into Steve 3 times, right? I guess technically you could double tap with Space Smaw and, maybe advance your target towards Eyehawk and Blade and then hit a siege there. There's things to turn on. Bill's another big one. It's pretty funny that you can shush Bill's armor, and they have to decide beforehand whether to burn Brace. So I'll give you a great example, like one that can happen is Bill's on 1 health, and Eyehawk gets the throw trigger and throws him into a friendly model. Now the enemy has to decide to use Brace or not before you shush anything. If they use Brace, you say, great, you braced it. If they choose not to and then pay to reduce, you can then shush the reduction and have him die. So but they can't retroactively brace after the fact. So if they need Bill to live, they have to brace it. And you still have shush for later on. If they just choose not to, they make you burn they make you burn shush, but I mean it could be huge to kill Bill that turn, right? So it's one of those cards that I really want to use more, and in the times I've used him, I maybe hold it too long, hold it for something super fancy, like some really cool thing, but I don't know. I think there's some really cool things you can do with Space Smaw, and I'm going to test him some more. Like I said, I think there's a lot of range things, like the dip in and out type thing moves you can do. I've done things like, you can bump into bodyguard range or stealth range and then bump out. Or I think I was against Shocker and I bumped out of range of the aura. And again, you can do this with Space Gem, but it's less power, and you can do something after the fact too. It's Omni. You can go up and back. You can go double do it, so you go even farther. I'm pretty sure he can make it to a back F. If you were super ballsy, you'd have to be a real big man to do this. You could 1, 2. Oh my gosh, you're killing me here. I threw away the 1 point I wanted to check if I could make it to. I think you're just short. Yeah, you're just... This is one of those ones, if you don't know about it in real life, you'd think you'd make it, but I think you're always just short. That looks so close, doesn't it? Oh, it's a secure. You might actually make it. Do you make it if it's perfect? Oh. There's a chance you could steal somebody's hammer with bump and then Space Gem backwards. I don't know if that works. Oh no, you'd bump backwards. You'd have to Space Gem forward and then you'd bump backwards from here, which I guess isn't that different. You'd only be here. You could dive back. So bump, so this is another reason why bump is actually good, is bump gets you to here. A normal base medium mover couldn't make it, but bump gets you far enough to here that you could then, Space Gem back. I mean, this would be more useful on a D shape, like D's with a F here, where you could get back to this point and still be on the side secure. So you at least, maybe they can hit you once, but it's not the same. So for cubes, for example, you could just dive somebody else's cube. Instead, say you're on cubes, I don't know, extremist or something, which I wouldn't be on, I guess. That's pretty cute. Now it's got me thinking if Hulk got an extra place, how far can he make it? Nope, he's not that fast. Does it make it with just another 2? Probably. It is pretty funny that with the space gem, Hulk could steal somebody's hammer and make it back to here in the middle of a scoundrel. That's actually like super funny. You would never play scoundrel hammers at 17 though, so I guess scientific method would be the other one, but I guess if you're setting that up would be kind of weird. I don't know if that would be a good play or not. I guess you could always bounce backwards if you're worried about distance. I'm talking to myself about like some weird stuff you could do. Yeah, I gotta play with some more. I want to test some more of this stuff. I don't think it can be that bad. Oh, the last thing. If you're against somebody who throws a lot, Space Maw can brace your Eyehawk being thrown into him with his internal brace. He might not always have power for it, but it is something to talk about. Like shushing Strange's scalpels, shushing somebody's throw can be really big. Like the difference between like getting Eyehawk off a point or something. Like shush is basically like plenty of examples of like free VPs and stuff like that. And you take their power away, so like it's super oppressive. And so I think in these tight games where like it could be like the more tall it is, the more like important of a superpower you could shut down potentially, whether it's a scalpel or I don't know, a ping damage or some sort of bodyguard by Mephisto. You could just shush it and be like, not today, buddy, and then like rail on him with Eyehawk, right? Like there's a lot of things you can shush defensively that like helps Eyehawk immensely. That kind of stuff. I think there's the Magneto extra dice where he can't be thrown. You could shush that, and then Magneto's stuck on like 3 dice without being the throw protection. Dude, this is legit. This has to be good. All right, for all the people wanting to hear about it, this is me 30 minutes talking about Space Maw and Sun. So good luck.